Welcome to another episode of the Wood Couture Podcast. Incredible interior designers of India series recording live here at the Andhra Hotel in Aero City, New Delhi. And today we have the absolute pleasure to welcome the one and only Jaskaran Singh. Welcome.
Pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. Very excited. I was looking forward. I heard a lot of good things about you. And so 40 years in business, the firm.
Yes.
Right. And you are a graduate of the School of Planning and Architecture in New Delhi.
That's correct.
So one of the die-hard people, the top guys. And but for me, I want to understand first, when did you decide, yes, architecture is for me?
Difficult for me to say because I think I wanted to be part of design and this industry even before I perhaps knew the words architecture or interior design. I think as a child also I was very much fascinated towards improving things around me, creating whatever little I could. So I think I was very naturally drawn towards creating things, improving things. And I think I was fairly good at drawings as well. So I could put my ideas on paper, think about them, improve upon them. So there was no other profession, in fact, which came to me. I was drawn to both architecture and interiors, but because architecture encompasses both, so that's the education which I pursued. And so it seemed like a very, very natural choice. In fact, I was so drawn towards it. I did my first AutoCAD course, which is a drawing software, back when I was in class 9th. And at that time, AutoCAD was pretty much a rarity in India. This is early 90s. So college graduates were doing it at that time. I was the only one in school, in fact, who's taken up that course. So I think it's a career choice. It's also a life choice for me. And I find myself very much at ease working on architecture, working on design.
How is working with your own father?
I wouldn't know how is it not working with my father. So really, I can't do a comparison, but I think it's definitely been great. A lot of learnings along the way, a lot of guidance along the way. As far as work is concerned, I got a very, very good foundation, very good platform to start off from. And I'm sure someone else in my position would have really struggled to get the first project or get a good sizable project. Luckily, I've been very, very fortunate in that regard. So lots of benefits, of course.
Do you normally agree with everything he says, or you fight sometimes, or disagree, let's call it?
I think designers by themselves will find it difficult to agree completely on something. On technical matters, perhaps, yes, but it's about how you visualize spaces. So I think any designer will definitely have some level of disagreement or different thoughts, different opinions, how they're visualizing a space. It does, I think it's easy to find an agreement when something is fleshed out on paper. But before that, when we're imagining, discussing, my own wife is also an architect, my younger brother is an architect. So I think even when anyone is discussing...
No pressure.
So yeah.
All of them.
So I think I'm quite used to having...
Right.
All of us are used to having lots of different opinions on design.
Yeah. So interesting is, what is the best business advice he's given you?
One of the advices which came, in fact, very early on is to try and work with the best people possible. It did seem simplistic at that time, but later on I realized the importance of it. So, and whenever really we've relied on tried and tested people, tried and tested companies, products also, if I extend this thought to products, it's really held us in good stead. So, and sometimes working with good people isn't that easy. They're people after all. Everyone has their own eccentricities. People are better. People are always the busier ones as well. But sometimes one has to be more patient with them, be more cooperative towards them. But I think that was staying really following this advice in so many years. That's really, really helped us a lot.
I mean, now Fab Interiors, Fab Studio, so more than 100 colleagues you have in there. So you have 100 good people and plus. And And you guys have done tons of projects, and my understanding for what I read in your biography is that you brought technological advancement to the company. There is kind of your role, enhancing the technology in your company. So what have you brought in?
Uh, so technology I'm drawn towards, but I think more specific technology which helps us improve. I think that again that uh, natural inclination towards improving things is what has also brought me closer to technology. Uh, Using BIM is not so common in the hotel industry, architecture and interiors, and also definitely not so common in the residential design segment. So working on BIM is one thing, adopting AI fairly early on and really moving along with the advancements of AI is another thing. Design visualizations. I think we started doing VR visualization maybe about 4 years ago, which is, not difficult, but I think before most other people had really caught on to it. Design walkthroughs, better gadgets. So, these are the things which really I've focused on, and we've been able to incorporate in our workflow.
You mentioned AI, and there are some people out there that they are of the opinion that one day AI will take over human creativity. What do you think?
You know, difficult for me to prophesize, but I definitely think, first of all, it will definitely advance human creativity and human potential. We are only as good as our tools. Our tools help us think better, evolve better. Um, Today, we are speaking more than one languages. It's because of advancement, and hence something like this is possible. We have better exposure. Because we have better exposure, we can think beyond what we've seen. I think humankind has always been able to go beyond what is around them, challenge their current technology, and then advance to the next level of technology. It's been true so far. And I do believe with the advent of AI, the potential human mind is absolutely enormous. So we will be able to use AI, advance our ideas, advance our productivity. Uh, there may well come a time where perhaps AI can do more than what humans can, but I think it's a long, long way to go because AI is also undiscovered. I would also go to the extent of saying even human mind is undiscovered. So it's a great mystery that very interesting, I think, times that we're headed for.
Has it been helpful in the adoption of AI in the business?
Oh, definitely. I mean, if I have certain ideas in mind, if I wish to visualize it, the old-fashioned way would have been to draw it out. The modern way would have been to do it on a computer. But with AI, it will give us so many, let's say, representations of the ideas that we have that I can go through maybe tens of ideas, hundreds of ideas in a given day, whereas it would have been difficult to even go through two ideas visualized uh, with the previous technology. So I can go through more ideas. I do feel the burden of decision making will increase. The responsibility fall to people who have a great mental capacity. So work of the many will be able to be can be done by the few, but AI will definitely going to assist us along the way in our field as well.
So some people argue as well that there is right now a visual congestion, meaning Pinterest, Instagram, there is so much out there and make the work of an interior designer facilitated on one side, very difficult on the other because client has a lot of references. What do you think?
I think it's only helped. I think I would say largely it's helped. There could be small inconveniences that when we have, let's say, agreed upon a design direction and then something new comes along. So, but if I leave those inconveniences aside, you know, going back 20 years, finding a visual which both you and I like would have been so difficult. But today, if we sit down together, go to, let's say, any of these websites, and in 5 minutes, we'll find 10 visuals which both of us like. Just imagine going back 15, 20 years and finding a platform where you could have done this. It would have been impossible.
So you speed up the understanding client to design.
100%, because if I'm describing a space to you, you will visualize it differently. And you might disagree with what I have described. And I may have some other picture in mind. So I think it's made our life so much easier. And the discussions are, in fact, so much more fruitful. because we have these huge libraries of database available.
Wow. You mentioned also virtual reality, something that it was a big wow factor when they all come out, and people are bit okay. Do you think we reach the day when we're going to have the virtual mock-up room rather than doing the physical one? Hotel business.
I think the technology is already there, and I think a lot of, let's say, the thoughts, different ideas, opinions that would have come later on at the stage of inspection of any prototype design, could be a mock-up hotel mock-up room, for instance, that can be improved beforehand. But I very much think that definitely the importance of a physical mock-up room, it cannot be ignored, and we should definitely uh, create both the virtual version, of course, before, and the modified version. In fact, even once the physical mock-up is done, if one wants to look at a modification, then going back to VR is not a bad idea. So the physical mock-up room is there, and let's say some improvement is thought of, but instead of actually redoing the mock-up again, perhaps just take a day, a few hours, for instance, look at the virtual reality result, and then do the physical mock-up again. So I think it's not as if one is against the other. Both are, in fact, both can support each other.
Complementing the
Yes, 100%.
Interesting. I like one of your quotes. Our design tells stories that resonate with the hearts of those that inhabit them. I like, wow, that's a very good way to put the storytelling across. So, how do you guys create these stories?
I definitely believe that to be true, because I feel once we are moving through spaces, through different rooms, through passageways, each as in life, we remember our stories as well as we remember the mood that we were in. So each space, the home, let's say, for instance, or a hotel also, for that matter, creates a certain mood. There are certain materials which will help generate that kind of mood. Plus, there are small pieces of memory spread across your spaces. In a hotel, it could be pieces of collective memory, not personal memory. So there are paintings which should have an emotion, which should be relatable to the people who are visiting that property. When you go to let's say, a room, for instance, again, there should be material which you are, let's say, which means something to you, which says something to you. So it becomes a very emotionally fulfilling journey if one goes through a well-designed space. And I think that is maybe perhaps the most important purpose of good design. Rather than just being visually stunning, the emotion that it evokes within you. And it's like good food. Good food also satisfies a certain emotion which average food will never. So I think between good design and, let's say, great design, that would be my differentiating factor.
Interesting. And the, there is a lot of people that talk about sustainability. Yeah. But in all these interviews in the last 2 days, a lot of your industry peers, they are saying in the last 5 years, no client mention it, but actually, just as a thought, but not really convinced of the benefit of it. What's your views on the concept of sustainability?
Sustainability, of course, there are different ways to achieve sustainability. For me, the most important one is actually if we can design something, build something which will last for the longest period. If I use sustainable material to do something which will get trashed in 5 years, in my heart, I cannot call it sustainable. But if I design something and if it stays for, let's say, 50 years, then it doesn't matter if it's used up more energy to begin with. At least it will last me that long. Same is true for buildings which have served us for hundreds of years. And those buildings are 100 times more sustainable than something that we make today in a sustainable manner and pull it down after 20 years. So I think the ability to last, whether it is for buildings, for spaces, even for interiors, even for furniture for that matter, I think should be, at least in my book, that's the most important criteria. And then, of course, using materials which can be reproduced, which we can grow again, which are not damaging to the environment. But like I said, for me, that's a little distant second.
So When a client come to you and at the end of the design process and say, we need to do value engineering, how does it make you feel?
Um, Same old, same old. So it's not unusual. We of course, I think that happens to most designers, and I think we are used to it. It doesn't really disturb or bother us anymore. And in some ways, I also enjoy it because we're able to also discover how do we achieve, let's say, the same level of design and concept through material substitution, through some design alterations, and it also challenges us as designers, and sometimes it's quite satisfying also. So I think we have a good enough hold of material alternates to go through the exercises now smoothly as compared to perhaps 15-20 years ago. So, but I think something that we all have to be prepared for as designers, and it's because at the larger levels, the business sense has to prevail.
In fact, one of your trends, it was the eco-conscious design and digital technology. That was your top two design trend that you gave to a magazine. Say these two has to be so eco-conscious or well-being design. It seems to be the flavor of the month.
I mean, I think we just spoke about this, and I think really being present in a space and that space responding to the mood that you wish to be in uh, is perhaps, like I said, the most important purpose of designing any space. If I wish to let's say spend time with someone with a certain degree of formality, the space should respond to it. And like you said, let's say the marble that you mentioned, Calcutta, is great for creating a little sense of formality.
Right.
But if you let's say want a more playful environment, something like a colorful carpet might be a much more suitable material to opt for.
Of all the project you guys have done, I'm sure they're all unique, like it is in every project. Are there projects that you remember they say, I'm very proud of that, for whatever reason? Not the best, because I wouldn't call it, but they're all good. But that stands in your mind, say, we're very proud of that project, or projects, more than one.
The one project which actually keeps on coming to my mind is the Savoy Hotel in Missouri.
Wow.
It's a heritage property. It was built way back in 1902. So hats off to the person who built it back then, in fact. But when we stepped in to do a complete major overhaul, I wouldn't say renovation because the structure was in shambles.
122 years old building.
Yeah.
Wow.
But so now stepping in, re-engineering it, strengthening it, doing your interiors, it actually meant spending a huge amount of time on this side, which was challenging, enjoyable in its own way, but being present while the work is happening. So that's sort of physical connect and emotional connect, which I actually had that with that property. Perhaps is I haven't had with any other. Uh, Plus the fact that it started doing really well. In fact, before that, the Hilltown, Missouri, wasn't having great ARRs. But after Savoy came along and JW Marriott also happened in Missouri, uh, I believe the entire actually that Hilltown has really hospitality over there has really been on the uprise. So little credit we can take for actually initiating that exercise, initiating this phase of this revitalization of one of our favorite hill town, which is Missouri.
So hospitality is quite big for you in terms of asset class as a designer. Do you do a lot of hotels?
We do a lot of hotels. We do a lot of residential spaces as well. I feel that both are very similar in terms of approach. If one looks at the science of designing, I think they're very similar because we're designing for the same person. If I'm designing your home, I need to understand you quite well. Once I've understood you very well, I can design a space where you want to live. I can also design a space where you only want to live for 2 days. But I think understanding people is more important. Once we have a good hang of the science of designing for people, I think are well equipped to design hospitality as well as private residential spaces, and those really are our focus areas at the moment.
And is it the same when you have an owner that you done his house and then this guy want to build a hotel? Is it the same approach? Because it's his personal hotel, so
Not at all, not at all. Because if I'm designing someone's house, I really, really need to listen to that person and that family.
right.
But if I'm designing a hotel for them, we do need to understand their business vision for the hotel. But once we've taken that information from them, I think designers are able to understand the mindset of people better than a regular business owner. So after that point, we really don't have to give a lot of importance to their personal tastes. We have to really design for the people or the clientele that project will be catering for. So I would say it's completely different.
Interesting. I wanted to ask you, in a lot of the countries, and the people we interviewed and talked to, they refer quite often to say the way we were designing hotel before COVID is completely different after COVID. And is it the same scenario in India, that the way you approach a hotel design is different than you were doing pre-COVID?
We had this phase in between, especially when COVID was there and all these, let's say, panel discussion happening online, that COVID will completely change how hotel design happens. And there were talks of doing pods in restaurants and keeping tables certain distance away and rooms being operated by being touchless rooms and all that. Even then, I thought really we're going to pretty much go back to the way things were. And progress will take its own course, but it will not get affected by COVID. I was very sure of that. And I think we have enough evidence to show really COVID hasn't affected modern hotel design, at least in our country. I was sure of this because I know that humanity has suffered these losses, faced these calamities before. And looking back at, let's say, hotels, restaurants which are in Europe, Italy, for instance, I believe they've stayed the same for centuries now. So they must have gone through these difficult phases. But then I see because we see no evidence of physical change now. Let's show when finally we're able to overcome COVID, we will go back to the way humanity wishes to engage with other, the way people wish to engage with other people. Of course, we want expanse in certain spaces, but in certain spaces, we do need intimacy. So that I think will not change.
It was just a temporary feeling because people were, afraid of what's happened. And so they thought that, hey, we need this. And then eventually it all disappear because we're back to square one now. Same. So interesting. It's very first interview we did with Hemant, the chairman of Triple ID. And he said a very interesting quote, which don't come from him, come from Vivek Gupta. And he said, among the fraternity, we all know each other. Or when we go to a conference, they all know us, because we are there and we're talking to peers. The moment we step out, they don't know us. Only fashion designers that became famous. But do you think that today, with company like yours, 40 years in business, that tons of projects, when you have a house, the sell designed by Fab Studio, will that add value to the selling price?
I think we are seeing a beginning of that trend now, and it hasn't been the case so far. And I think largely it's us designers who have faltered in that aspect. We should have been more visible and try to really make the connection between successful properties and the designers, increase the awareness level between, let's say, who's designed which properties. So that should have really been initiated by the designers themselves. And even now, I would say designers are not making even a strong enough attempt to do that. There are, in fact, people around designers, media houses, perhaps, and these different forums and different platforms, which are in fact creating, let's say, or making the presence of designers felt in social media, increasing the awareness amongst the general public. But I think designers also really need to focus on this aspect, and as should we. But I agree. I would say I think that trend is beginning for sure now.
That's fantastic. I mean, you create spaces, storytelling, and that, but don't get no benefit of, the value appreciation that the real estate claim for, which is incredible. I'm glad this is starting now, um, and another thing which is very interesting that I wanted to ask you about this is when you have a new graduate that come and work for you guys, what is the best advice you can give to these guys?
Actually, my advice to them, and whether they're joining us or not joining us, to focus on their core subject, whatever they're naturally drawn towards, because it's become such a diverse field. And I so often see people switching from one subject to the other, even within the construction industry, maybe from architecture, then to visualization, then to interior, sometimes to project management, then back to architecture. That after about 10 years, 12 years, they have no real skill in any one of them. So my advice is really choose whatever, let's say, the core subject that you're naturally drawn towards. Could be conceptualization, could be technical stuff, could be visualization, could be anything. But staying really on course with what you really have a natural inclination for would be I think the most important advice that I can give.
So focus rather than jumping left and right.
Because it's becoming a field of super specialization. I mean, at least in our country, maybe 20, 30 years ago, there was no concept of separate interior designers or interior decoration, or someone focusing on interior styling, lighting design, for instance, or even sound design. But now, of course, we've caught up with the rest of the world. All those things specializations exist, and we need to focus on each one of them. As a architect designer, I can be something, let's say, similar to a conductor in an orchestra. After having worked for so many years, but really people who are starting off in their career need to focus on one thing, develop great skill, at least in that one thing, and I think once they've acquired that skill and expertise in one field, then perhaps they can start looking at something else as well.
Once the project is fully designed, ready to go, what are the challenges of the execution part of the project from a construction point of view? What are the challenges that you see in the industry?
I think the most important one is getting the right people to execute the job. There seems to be a good deal of misinformation, misrepresentation, if I may say so, on part of quite a few people. Lots of unnecessary opinions that often, the responsibility of delivering the project doesn't go to the right people. I feel that's the biggest thing which is stopping us as a team for delivering projects on time and with the right amount of quality.
Interesting. Is and one of the challenges that people experience in the industry is the fact that clients tend to give the full FF&E package, includes the loose, to a fit-out companies, to a civil work company, and it's like giving an Italian chef to do Indian food. So
worse than that, I would imagine.
Huh?
Worse than that.
Worse than that. Okay, I like that. What is the worse than that? They're giving everything to a fit.
No, it's like actually asking someone handling iron work to do work with jewelry. I think it would perhaps that would be something comparable, because we've seen it happen, and really they're not tuned in for it. I think that the work of specialized work has to go to the specialized people who have a track record of 10, 20, 30 years working on that. And really, until and unless one specifies, supposing as a general idea, if it has to go to a general contractor who's engaging a specialized agency for delivering, let's say, furniture, furnishings, then it has to be specified. Okay, it can go to between A, B, and C, or D, whatever it has to be. It cannot be left to the general contractor to make the decision on their own. exactly what you spoke about. Getting the right work has to go to the right people. Uh, so
Interesting. That's very, very interesting. And so we're coming to an end of our conversation, but I wanted to ask you, the day you're going to slow down, because I never said to anybody in the interior architecture in India when you retire, because it seems that people work earlier. Somebody, their mother set up a business at 91 years of age. I was like, gosh. So when people is going to slow down, let's call it, when you're going to slow down and you're going to have your kids probably taking over, the same way you did with your father, I mean, or whatever.
I think it's highly, highly unlikely my kids are going to step into this field because they are like the same advice which I give to people whom I meet, young people who I meet, that they have to follow their passion. I think my kids are drawn towards different things which seem quite some distance away from architecture or design, and I'm perfectly happy with that. I really don't know. I haven't given any thought to when I was.
But I wanted to ask you, how would you like to be remembered when you know anymore an architect? How would you like to be remembered?
Uh, well, I really have a dream that perhaps one day Indian designers become sought after globally. Currently, unfortunately, even in our own country, we seem to be the second preference. And as history has shown, sadly for us, only when Indians have shown their worth outside of India, are they seen as worthy inside of India. So I think we'll have to, as Indian designers, as a community, we'll have to uh, establish ourselves outside the country, be sought after outside our country globally, and maybe that day we'll find some respect in our own country. So that's, I think, the sad reality the way I see it. And talk about slowing down, I really don't know, haven't given it any thought. But when I do, I really wish to go to teaching. I I've always thought I would love teaching, and I've really thought that only when I practiced for minimum of 20 years will I even consider going and teaching to someone. So I've completed that time frame recently. But so whenever I do get the opportunity or do get an extra time when I do slow down, teaching is what I would love to do.
Well, academic is very interesting. It's fantastic because it's giving back to a younger and future generations. Teaching is giving back to future generations, which is fantastic. It's a good philosophy. It's some people will say, "Hey, I want to be remembered to be the best," and they go and playing golf. You actually say, "No, I want to go teach it." It's fantastic, remarkable. So, for the people that don't know, why are Indian designers incredible?
Per- Perhaps because because we're exposed to all levels of design and execution from uh, the entire process is something which has to be handheld by the designers in our country. And I think that's why they have a stronger grip on things. Uh, I would imagine, let's say, designers who are in a more comfortable position perhaps can send across a design package and it gets executed pretty smoothly. I'm sure in some parts of the world that is true. But in India, a person working on a construction site, the final person, is not the skilled person. He is actually, most of them are just, let's say, farmers who are also working in their fields during certain months of the year. And the rest of the year, they're working in construction. They don't have the best tools. Unfortunately, uh, most of them don't have the right level of education also. So designers, of course, in our country involved even at that level. So from discussing with the client, discussing the design concept, designing business, discussing the business sense behind the project, and then to the other extreme of discussing even with the person working at site. I think that gives us a very, very well-rounded exposure of how things are designed to the final execution point. Uh, Perhaps that has something to do with it. I think also we are quite aspirational. Our parents, grandparents have seen a lot of struggle, and hence the aspiration level I think is really, really high. And none of us are satisfied. And I think that dissatisfaction is very important for designers.
So, in pursuit of perfection, it's or resilience towards perfection.
Perhaps for us.
Yeah, it's great. So if I put a massive, giant white canvas on top of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building on the world, what message would you write in there so everybody can see it?
It would be very simple. Follow your passion. Keep the integrity of your profession alive. And I guess that would be it.
It's very powerful because passion is everything. It's dear Jaskaran, thank you very much.
So it was
Really
wonderful,
enjoyed.
wonderful discussing
Thank
with
you. Thank you.
Thank you.